My name is Dr. Camilla Rhodes, Lieutenant Colonel, retired. For 6 years, my family pretended I didn't exist, not in a metaphorical, poetic kind of way. I mean literally gone. No calls, no texts, not a single seat reserved for me at Dad's funeral. They moved on like I'd vanished in some quiet car crash, and they just never checked the wreckage. So when a glossy black envelope arrived in my mailbox, I froze. Elegant cardstock. Thick. Expensive. I ran my finger over the embossed lettering, then flipped it over. Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes cordially invite you to Carter's wedding. I nearly laughed. Not a hint of warmth. Not even Camilla. Just my rank. Lieutenant Colonel. As if the title I earned with blood and sweat, and a spinal compression fracture I still feel in the rain, somehow made me easier to swallow. More acceptable. Like saying doctor might make them forget the rest. Inside was a handwritten note. 2 words. Behave. That was it. No, we'd love to see you. No, it's been too long. Just a warning. Like I was a walking press disaster. Like they were already imagining me with a whiskey in one hand and a grenade in the other, making a scene. I wasn't invited to celebrate. I was summoned to be contained. And that made me want to go. Not out of pettiness, though sure I had plenty of that stored up, but because I was tired of letting them write me out of the story. Tired of playing the ghost while they rewrote history in pastel tones with seating charts and signature cocktails. So I booked a ticket, polished my boots, wore my best black dress. I was going to that wedding, not to cause trouble, not even to reconcile. Just to exist. The venue was a plantation house turned event space in Georgia. Of course it was. The kind of place with white columns and polite racism. Carter had always been their golden boy. Charming, presentable, predictable. The kind of son who made them feel like good parents. I arrived late, naturally. Not to be dramatic, just to avoid the pre-ceremony small talk and the awkward stares. As I stepped into the hall, conversations dipped. I could feel the oxygen shift. A few guests looked at me like I'd wandered into the wrong movie. I didn't flinch. I found my seat in the very last row, the one labeled Family, Extended. Real subtle. My mother glanced over once, tight-lipped. My brother didn't even turn around. The ceremony was perfect. Carter in his custom suit. His fiancée, now wife, glowing like she'd just won the lottery. The crowd dabbed tears, laughed in all the right places. And I sat there, invisible in plain sight. At the reception, I slipped toward the bar. 2 glasses of Cabernet in, and a man approached me. Clean-shaven, nervous energy. A cousin, maybe. I couldn't tell. Dr. Rhodes? He asked, like he wasn't sure I was real. Depends who's asking, I said. He laughed too hard, then leaned in. I just wanted to say, thank you for your service. My dad talks about you sometimes. Said you were a real badass. That word, badass, hung in the air, like it was supposed to explain everything, like grit and medals could cover the crater their silence left behind. Tell your dad he can call me sometime, I said. He nodded, walked off, relieved. Later, when the music was loud enough to drown out polite conversation, Carter found me. Tie loosened, sweaty, guilt in his eyes. You came, he said. I did. I wasn't sure you would. I sipped my wine. You weren't sure I existed. He winced. Look, Cam. Don't. I cut him off. You had 6 years. He glanced around, nervous someone might overhear, still more worried about optics than the wreckage between us. I just wanted peace, he said. For the family. Peace. That word again. A pretty lie people tell to avoid doing the hard work of love. I set down my glass and looked him in the eye. You wanted quiet, not peace. Then I walked away. That was the last conversation I had that night. I danced once, alone, slow and deliberate, in a corner no one watched. I raised a glass to no one in particular. I left without saying goodbye. The next morning, I mailed the black envelope back, empty. The mansion looked exactly the same. Same perfect hedges. Same spotless windows that gleamed like they'd been polished with gilt. Everything manicured to a fault. Not a flower out of place, not a leaf on the driveway. The kind of place that screamed legacy and whispered suppression. I knew this house like I knew an old scar. Still there, still tender, no matter how much time had passed. Inside, it smelled like expensive perfume, furniture polish, and repression. The walls hadn't changed, neither had the family portraits lining the hallway. Dad in his favorite blazer, Mom in pearls. Carter beaming like a golden retriever. Me, still conspicuously absent. The rehearsal dinner was in the main dining room, a place I hadn't stepped into since the fight that ended it all. I half expected my seat to be missing, just erased like I'd been in every other family photo since 2019. But no, they gave me a seat. Technically, 14 family members sat around a long candlelit table, laughing, toasting, leaning into each other like a Norman Rockwell painting come to life. I was at seat 15, by the kitchen entrance, back to a hallway that blew cold every time a server came through. It was strategic, calculated. I wasn't next to anyone. No one to make small talk with. No cousin to whisper sarcasm to. I might as well have been sitting in the pantry. I caught Mum's eye as I approached. She didn't greet me, didn't smile, just looked me over slowly, like she was scanning for weapons. "You're not wearing your uniform?" she asked, tone clipped. "It's a dinner, not a debriefing," I said. Her lips thinned. "Just don't make this about you." And just like that, I became what I always was to her, a shadow with medals, something to hide behind a piano or a centerpiece, a decorated inconvenience. I took my seat, back straight, spine stiff, the way the military taught me. One of the servers nearly bumped me with a tray. No apology, just a quick glance like, "Oh, right. You." Carter gave a toast. His voice was smooth, practiced. He said all the right things. Love, gratitude, family, future. He even thanked our parents for their support. I watched them beam like they'd raised a saint. He didn't mention me. Not once. I raised my glass anyway, because habits are hard to break. The meal stretched on, full of soft laughter and fork clinks. People passed roles and stories like nothing had ever gone wrong. A cousin mentioned my deployment like it was a quirky summer internship. "Oh, I could never do that. I don't even like camping," she said, giggling. I stared at my plate and imagined what she'd do under mortar fire. Nobody asked me about the last 6 years. Nobody asked why I left, or what it felt like to come home to silence. Nobody asked what it was like burying my commanding officer overseas while my own father was laid to rest without me, because asking would make it real, and this family didn't do real. At one point, a photographer made the rounds. A young guy, barely older than some of the cadets I used to train. He aimed his lens toward the table and hesitated when he saw me. "You want me in this?" I asked flatly. He blinked. Yes, ma'am. Unless you'd prefer..." I waved him off. "Take it. Just try not to crop me out later." He didn't laugh, just nodded and snapped the picture. I imagined that photo in the family album one day, me blurry in the corner, half lit, half seen. Dessert came. Some delicate thing with spun sugar and edible flowers. I picked at it. One of my uncles, drunk off Chardonnay, leaned over and said, "You know, Camilla, you used to be such a serious kid." Never smiled. I looked at him. "That's probably because I was trying to survive dinner." He blinked, then laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. By the time the plates were cleared and the chairs started to scrape back, I felt more tired than I had after my last 36-hour field op. Emotional fatigue is worse. There's no adrenaline, just the slow, dull sting of being ignored in plain sight. As everyone shuffled toward the parlor for post-dinner drinks and more curated conversation, I stayed behind a moment, still in that cold chair, still facing the kitchen door. A server passed and said, "You okay, Mom?" I nodded, then stood. My knees cracked like they were trying to warn me, "Don't go back in there." But I did, because I hadn't come all this way to vanish again. I found myself alone in the hallway for a breath. Just me and the old portrait of Dad. He looked young in it, strong, proud. I touched the frame lightly. "You'd hate this," I whispered. I used to think he was the only one who really understood why I left. why I couldn't keep playing the obedient daughter while the house burned quietly behind closed doors. But even he hadn't called. Grief is weird like that. It doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it just sits with you at seat 15 and says nothing. Later that night, as I was walking out to my car, Carter caught up with me. "Cam," he called. I turned. He looked flushed, like maybe he'd had one too many bourbons or one too many truths sneak up on him. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I know. I mean, thanks for being here. It means something. To Mom. To me." I stared at him for a beat. "You know what would mean something?" I asked. "A phone call, when Dad died, when I got back. Hell, even when you got engaged. You had 1,000 chances, Carter." He looked down, ashamed or pretending to be. I didn't care which anymore. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he muttered. "Keeping the peace." "You were keeping the illusion," I said. "Big difference." He opened his mouth, but I walked past him before he could speak, because that illusion was his to keep. Not mine, not anymore. The ballroom glowed gold, not metaphorically, literally. They'd rented up lighting to bathe the walls in soft amber, and the chandeliers, huge, dripping with crystals, sparkled like they were trying to blind regret itself. Every table had centerpieces taller than the guests, glass vases bursting with white orchids and roses, branches dusted with gold. It was the kind of setting you'd expect to see in a lifestyle magazine, spread titled "Perfect Weddings for Perfect People." I walked in alone. Again. I scanned the room for my name, eyes trailing down the crisp white seating chart, printed in calligraphy and mounted in a gold frame. Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes, Carter and Hannah. Cousins, aunts, plus ones I didn't recognize. No Dr. Camilla Rhodes, not even Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes. I finally found it, sort of, scribbled in fading ink on a piece of cardstock that looked like it had been fished out of a printer jam. C. Rhodes. Spelled wrong. The A in Rhodes replaced with an O, like I was some lost traveler trying to hitchhike to the nearest town. The card sat at a table shoved near the AV equipment, next to a speaker stack, humming low like it was embarrassed for me. The tablecloth didn't match the others. The napkin was a different shade of ivory, more grey than cream. No place card, no nameplate, no one else at the table. A seat, for one. I sat, smoothed the napkin onto my lap, counted my breaths like I used to during overnight watch shifts. Across the room, Carter stood on the stage, microphone in hand, grinning. "Can you believe my sister flew all the way from wherever she guards doors now?" he said. Laughter, big, throaty, too loud to be genuine, cruel in its volume. I didn't blink. "Seriously," he continued, "we weren't sure she'd show. She's usually busy threatening terrorists with eye contact." More laughter. This time, someone even clapped. I kept my hands on my lap, steady, still. My champagne glass was half full, untouched. I didn't trust my grip. Then it happened. The real blow. My mother rose, elegant in her floor-length navy gown, glass raised like she was accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award. She smiled. "To the one black mark on our record," she said, voice smooth, carrying easily through the mic. "At least she's punctual." Laughter again. Applause. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she said it. Light, effortless, like it was all in good fun. Like I was part of some family inside joke. But I knew that tone. It was her favorite weapon, the perfectly wrapped insult, delivered with a bow and a smile. Designed to look harmless, designed to leave bruises no one else could see. No one flinched. Not even Carter. They all laughed, toasted, sipped champagne while I sat next to a speaker, humming its sad little dirge. That was the moment I realized something. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't passive. This was intentional. They weren't just pretending I didn't exist. They were reminding me that I shouldn't. I stood up, walked past the glittering tables, the dancers, the photographers. No one stopped me. No one said my name. Not even the people who had once changed my diapers, once tucked me into bed, once cried at my commissioning ceremony. Outside, the air was thick with summer heat and perfume drifting from the garden. I stood under one of those giant string-lit arches they'd set up for photo moments, surrounded by manicured hedges and people who wouldn't come looking for me. A figure approached, soft footsteps, Hannah, the bride, still in her gown, still radiant, her face unsure. "Camilla," she said softly. "I just wanted to say..." I waited. "I didn't know they were going to do that," she said. "The toast, the seating." I raised an eyebrow. "You helped plan every inch of this wedding, Hannah. You knew." She didn't deny it. "I didn't think it would hurt you," she admitted. "I thought you'd be used to it." That stung more than anything said over the microphone. "Used to it?" I echoed. She nodded, helpless. "They talk about you like you're cold, like you don't care, like nothing gets to you." I exhaled, slow, controlled, decades of discipline in a single breath. "That's not strength, Hannah," I said. "That's survival." She looked down, ashamed, or maybe just sorry she got caught in the middle. "I just wanted today to go smoothly," she murmured. "It did," I said. "No one died, no one cried, just a quiet little assassination right there next to the champagne fountain." She didn't laugh. I turned to go. My shoes clicked on the stone path like a metronome. "Camilla," she called after me. "Why did you come?" I stopped, turned back. "To see if anything had changed," I said. "To see if I still had a family." She waited. "And?" she asked. I gave her the only honest answer I could. "I don't." I left the wedding with nothing. No cake, no parting gift, no goodbye hugs. But I left with clarity. And sometimes that's enough. I stood, not with rage, not with a dramatic slam of a chair or a shattered champagne flute, not with tears either, that part of me. The part that cried over family, over belonging, over being good enough, had long dried up somewhere in the sand and smoke of my second tour. No, I stood with something sharper, cleaner, clarity. My voice didn't tremble. I didn't shout. I just spoke. The people I served would never tolerate the cowardice I've seen in this room. That was it. One sentence, but it landed like a grenade. The laughter died. The music seemed to mute itself. Even the chandeliers felt like they dimmed. Forks paused mid-air. A ripple of discomfort passed through the tables, stiffening backs and straightening fake smiles. I didn't wait for permission. I didn't need it. I turned toward the door, ready to leave them to their golden illusion, to the pristine glass and polished silver, to their careful world where shame wore pearls and cruelty was passed off as wit. But then, something happened I never expected. From the head table, a chair moved. Deliberate, slow. It was Layla, Carter's bride. She stood, graceful, composed, not a trace of panic in her face. She reached for the microphone with a calm so intense it felt like still water before a storm. She looked at me, then at the crowd, and when she spoke, her voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You mock her," she said. Her eyes scanned the room. "But she's the reason I'm alive." No one breathed. "I met her on a trauma ward in Turkey," Layla continued. "I was bleeding out, half a lung gone, 3 minutes from death. Camilla held the line while the rest of the field hospital went dark. No backup, no orders, just her and her bare hands. She kept me alive." I froze. Even I hadn't connected the dots. A patient, in Turkey. That was years ago. So many bodies, so many blood-soaked uniforms. And somehow she remembered me. Layla wasn't done. She wrote the letter that got me into med school when no one else would. I was a foreign national, broke, barely functioning. But she believed in me. The silence in the room thickened. Even the air felt heavier, charged. "You all cheer for me tonight," she said, her voice rising just enough. "You call me brilliant, brave, beautiful, but you shame the woman who saved me." Her words were not sentimental, they were surgical. Across the room someone stood up. In the back, a man in a dark suit. hair cropped tight, rigid stance. He raised his hand in a salute. Then another man rose beside him. Then a woman. Then a third. 3 veterans. 3 quiet witnesses, saluting. And then, like a whisper sneaking through the tension, someone near the front turned to their table and asked, "That's Camilla Rhodes?" The question moved like wind across dry leaves. Whispers turned into stares. Stares turned into silence of a different kind. Not the uncomfortable kind, not the cold kind. This was the kind that trembles just before awe arrives. Suddenly, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the outlier at the AV table. I wasn't the black mark. I wasn't the joke in Carter's speech. I was seen. I hadn't planned this. Hadn't wanted it, honestly. I didn't need applause. I didn't need some Hollywood redemption arc. But something shifted in that moment. Something real. And for the first time in years, I let myself feel that shift. Carter stood now too. Slowly. Like his legs had forgotten how to move. His eyes met mine. And this time, they weren't smug. They weren't deflecting. They were full of questions. Regret. Recognition. But I didn't need an apology. Not anymore. This wasn't about him. It wasn't about my mother. It wasn't about the 6 years of silence or the seating card with my name misspelled. This was about me reclaiming my space, my story, my name. Dr. Camilla Rhodes, Lieutenant Colonel, combat medic, trauma surgeon, and apparently the reason the bride was still breathing. Layla set the mic down and came over to me. No performance, no tears. She just hugged me, tight. "I've waited years to thank you," she whispered. "You just did," I said. Around us, the party hadn't resumed. No one went back to their meal. The spell was broken. The facade cracked. And then, slowly, a few people started to clap. Not polite, not hesitant, but honest, awkward, earnest. It spread like wildfire. Carter clapped too, though his hands shook slightly. Even my mother, stone-faced and unmoved until now, looked rattled. She didn't clap, but she didn't speak either. And for once, that was enough. I didn't stay much longer. I didn't need to. I walked out of that ballroom not as a guest, dismissed, but as someone who had carved her own place in history. In spite of them, not because of them. Outside, the night was cool, quiet. I looked up at the sky. No stars in the city, but I knew they were there. Distant, constant, like truth. As I got into the car, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. Not broken, not forgotten, seen. And finally, respected. Later that night, after the applause faded, after the band played one too many Coldplay covers, after I had reclaimed my place in the room just by standing in it, the real confrontation came. Not on a stage, not with a microphone. It happened in a dark corner near the wine bar, beneath a sconce dripping dim amber light, and years of unspoken resentment. My mother found me there. She moved with purpose, heels clicking against the marble like a metronome of judgment, always so polished, so composed. Her posture hadn't changed in decades. Spine straight, chin tilted like she was looking just above your flaws. "Camilla," she said. Not sweetheart, not darling, not even Lieutenant Colonel. Just my name, neutral, like a ceasefire that wouldn't hold. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't comment on the reception twist, or on Layla's revelation, or on the salutes from the veterans who remembered my name when my own family didn't. Number She came with purpose, as always. "I need a favor," she said. A favor. Not an apology, not an acknowledgement. A favor. "Some of the guests tonight, they talk," she said, smoothing the front of her dress. "There's chatter, online, photos, headlines maybe. You know how it is. Things go viral." I said nothing, just sipped my drink and watched her try to arrange her shame into something manageable. "I was hoping," she continued, "that you could make a statement, something neutral, something dignified. Maybe clarify that there was no real falling out, that it's all complicated." There it was. The ask. She didn't want healing. She wanted control. She wanted spin. PR. A narrative she could live with. One that wouldn't get her side-eyed at brunch. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folder. Thick. Worn at the edges. Quietly heavy. I handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." She did. Her eyes skimmed the first page, then the second, then they stopped, froze, blinked once, twice. Inside was a redacted ethics report from 4 years ago, an anonymous complaint submitted during my consideration for promotion to full colonel. The report detailed alleged character deficiencies, unresolved psychological instability, and repeated insubordination. All accusations never substantiated, but damaging enough to stall my advancement for nearly 18 months. The language was vicious and familiar. It had taken me time. A forensic linguist, cross-referencing phrases, tone, sentence structure, and in the end, the match had been too close to ignore. The author? Unofficially. Untraced by signature, but unmistakably her. "I wondered how long you'd wait before trying to rewrite the ending," I said, my voice even. Turns out it was just long enough for the cameras to come out. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Because silence? That's its own kind of confession. "You didn't just ignore me," I said, holding her gaze. "You didn't just banish me from the family table. You tried to erase me. You actively, strategically, and with full intent, tried to make sure I didn't rise." Still nothing. Just a slow sip of her wine. Red. Merlot, maybe. A bold vintage with a bitter finish, just like her. "And now that I've survived it," I continued, "now that I've been seen, now you want me to help you save face." Her jaw flexed, just barely. "You were angry back then," she said, like that explained everything. "You were hard to talk to. You scared people. I scared you." She looked away. The candlelight danced across her pearls. "You always said you wanted strong women," I said. "You raised me to be unbreakable. Then you punished me when I actually was." Still, she said nothing. Because what do you say when the truth is the only thing left in the room? "You didn't just hurt me," I said. "You made me question who I was. You sabotaged my career, and you did it from behind a curtain, without the courage to even put your name on it." "I didn't think it would go that far," she whispered finally. "But you wrote it." She hesitated. "Yes," she said. One word. Quiet. Brutal. And there it was. The confession. After all the years, all the silence, all the lies stitched into family dinners and fake smiles. One word, and the truth finally stood up. I should have felt relief. I should have felt vindicated. I didn't. I just felt done. I took the folder from her hand, tucked it back into my clutch. "I don't owe you a statement," I said. "Not for the press, not for the neighbors, not even for the family. If you want the world to see you a certain way, fix your reflection." She looked at me, older suddenly, smaller. I turned to leave. "Camilla," she said. I paused. "You made it anyway," she said softly. I didn't smile. I didn't soften. I made it despite you. And with that, I walked away. Not triumphant, not broken, just free. I never gave a statement. No press release. No carefully crafted soundbite. No viral apology tour. I didn't need to explain myself. The moment had already done what words never could. Layla's speech, raw, honest, electric, was recorded by someone's phone at table 9. Less than 48 hours later, it had 4.6 million views. The clip surged across timelines and headlines, reposted by veterans groups, feminist pages, and media outlets hungry for a story that wasn't just sensational, it was real. They called it "The Wedding That Turned Into a Salute." I watched it once, not to relive it, but to bear witness. To myself, to the strange symmetry of being erased and then suddenly, publicly remembered. I watched as strangers commented things like, "That's what integrity looks like," and "Who is this woman? Give her a medal." I already had medals. What I didn't have, until that moment, was permission. From the world, from myself, to stand still and let my record speak for itself. After that, the interview requests flooded in. Morning shows, podcasts, think pieces, TED Talks. One particularly persistent producer offered to fly me first class to New York and pair me with a stylist. I said no to all of it, not because I wasn't grateful, but because I'd spent enough of my life proving things to people who had already made up their minds. Instead, I went to work. I founded the Rhodes Initiative, a quiet, focused program for women veterans facing the kind of sabotage no battlefield prepares you for, the private kind, the whispers, the concerns logged in HR, the family dinners where your career is a punchline, the way people weaponize your strength against you. We started small, one office, one hotline, legal resources, peer mentors, transition training. Eventually, we partnered with clinics and law schools. We helped women document the things no one wanted to see, anonymous tips, forged complaints, subtle character assassinations. We gave them something better than visibility. We gave them proof, and that proof changed lives. Meanwhile, Carter and Layla moved abroad, Berlin first, then Copenhagen. Layla took a trauma rotation with Doctors Without Borders. Carter started writing. We keep in touch. Not often, but enough. We send birthday texts, trade dark jokes. He never apologized outright, but his actions did something better. They evolved. I didn't expect that. Change doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the shape of consistency. As for my mother, last Christmas I got a card. Classic script, gold foil. No note inside except 3 words scribbled above her signature. Thinking of you. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had passed between us. And that's when I realized I didn't need one anymore. I didn't feel the usual rush of anger, no tightness in my chest, no imaginary rehearsals of what I'd say if I ever called her back. I just placed the card on the counter, looked at it for a long moment, and dropped it in the recycling bin. Not out of hate, not even out of bitterness, but because I finally understood something crucial. Some silences are no longer mine to break. For years I thought speaking up was my only weapon, that I had to defend myself against every wound, every slight, every ghost. But silence, chosen silence, can be its own kind of power, because I'm not invisible anymore, and I don't need to fight battles I've already won. I live in a quiet house now, not far from the coast. There's an olive tree in the backyard. On Sundays, I walk the beach at sunrise, boots crunching over wet sand. I don't wear my uniform anymore, but I haven't packed it away either. It hangs in the closet, clean, pressed, waiting, not as armor, just as truth. I still carry stories, still hear voices in my dreams, still wake sometimes with my jaw clenched and fists curled, but I am not angry, not haunted, not broken, just aware of who I am, what I've survived, and what I will never tolerate again. Sometimes women veterans write me letters. They say, "Thank you for showing me I'm not crazy." They say, "My family tried to erase me too." And I write back every time. Because we don't need to be famous, we need to be known. So no, I never gave a statement, but I gave something stronger. I gave others permission to be seen, and that, I think, is how we win. Quietly, steadily, irrevocably.